Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis, and you are watching Season 3 of Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my sponsors, Make Some Printing, the smarter way to print. I know printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy. From their instant quote calculator that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free to their 24-hour customer service support, Mixum is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And right now, you can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials, and the company has also printed so many successful Kickstarter campaigns, some of them you've even heard about on this very show. And they currently offer services in the United States where I'm located. My friend is located in Canada where they also print. And my guest is from Australia and they print there too. And they print in the UK, and Mixum can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixum.com. And right now, listeners of this show can drop my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of a current order to get a 5% discount on your first order. So that is mixam.com. Again, type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of your current order to receive a 5% discount on your first order. I also have a BCW supplies code. So if you need bags, boards, long boxes, anything related to comics, type in Pop Anime Comics to get 10% off your first order. And you can use it for every other order pretty much after your first order. So save yourself some money. And then I have an awesome t-shirt. That's a Gundam t-shirt up on Redbubble. Links in the description up above. And so without further ado, I have my first guest who actually supported my Kickstarter, which I am ultimately grateful for, which means I get to continue for season 3 and part of season 4, actually. And actually, this is coming into podcasting slightly because of you. So I with me, comic creator Morgan Quaid. So
G'day,
hopefully I
g'day.
got the name right. Hopefully I got the name right.
Yeah, that's it. Morgan Quaid. That's the way. That's the way.
It might be the. I missed the, but that's not the
Oh,
point.
so I forget I have that sometimes. That's just me being silly, just being a bit stupid. No, it's just Morgan Quaid or whatever MQ, whatever you want to call me.
So
Awesome sauce.
obviously, I'm very happy to have you on because I actually looked at your Kickstarter and you have Shadow's daughter up, and it's a
Mhm.
very interesting Kickstarter. I think all the books are done, and there's 2 in the main story, and then there's 4 spin-offs. And
Yeah.
obviously, I'm going to let you explain what the basic premise is because some people know it, and some people are hearing about this for the very first time.
Yeah, cool. So Shadow's Daughter is a manga style comic. It's sort of westernized manga, so it's not traditional manga. Um, it's an urban fantasy thriller. It focuses on a protagonist, a girl named Summer Rain, who is a bounty hunter and also a shadowmancer. So her ability is that she can bend shadow to her will and use it as a physical force, either to attack or defend and those sorts of things. And the kind of underlying story or the premise behind the world that she inhabits is it's basically our world, but an alternate version. And 30 years ago, a moon rose, a blood moon or a demon moon rose, and it hung in the sky for about a month. It didn't disappear. And while it was hanging up there, there was all sorts of earthquakes and, floods and drama and all this sort of stuff. And a certain percentage of the population started to exhibit traits from, myths about werewolves and, vampires and those sort of creepy crawly things. And then as a result of that, afterwards, a small percentage of humans were transformed into these remade individuals. And Summer was one of those individuals. And so her whole thing is, get me that kish cash, if that's still a thing the kids are saying, or is it Skrilla, whatever the kids are saying for cash. That's what she's after. Her whole thing is, I want to bring in parole violators and bad dudes and make that money. But as the story progresses, obviously, she gets embroiled in something a little bit more complicated. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, we're going to dive into some of this stuff and really break her down a little bit. But where did this idea even come from? Because obviously it is Western, sort of Americanized manga. It's a bounty hunter story. There's supernatural elements in play. But it's
Mm.
very interesting because it's also very much different than other things that are out there. But it's got that anime vibe to it as well.
Yeah, well, there was one thing I said I'd never do as a writer was I'd never write anything about vampires or werewolves. Because at the time I was thinking about this, all the vampires were shiny. and all the werewolves were in love with humans, and there was that whole
It's
thing was
okay.
going
It's
on.
okay to be a Twilight fan. It's all right.
It's
You're in a safe
it's
space here.
fine. It's fine. I just don't want to rewrite that. I don't want to redo that whole story. So I was so sick of vampires. And honestly, as a writer, you look at that and you're thinking, what else can I do? It's all been done. It's like, aren't we tired of that yet? But then I thought, well, come on, man. You want to stretch yourself. You want to do something different. So I forced myself to write something that had vampires and werewolf type characters in it. So that was the first thing. I actually wrote a novel, Shadow's Daughter, which is not yet published, and I can't publish it yet because it ruins the current comic story. So I have to wait until this run is done
So
before I can
let's
get it
even
out
talk
there.
about that because that is interesting. Because I have a friend, Ben Kringer. I think that's how I say his last name, and I always get it wrong. But he has a comic, and then he did a prequel comic to it, and then he has a novel that tells a different story, but is similar and sort of tells similar events. But if you read the novel before you read the comic, it doesn't ruin it, but it changes the perspective. And what is that like for you to say, hey, I have this comic and then I have this spin-off stuff, and now I have a novel because now you're building very much, you're crossing media is really what you're doing. And now you're saying, hey, if you like this book, there's more stuff out here. And we've seen it with other properties like Avatar: The Last Airbender. We've seen it with the comic Jericho and a variety of other television works that have just continued on in comics. And so what is that like? Because you're now not doing a comic anymore, and it's not a comic property, it's expanding beyond that.
Yeah, it's really exciting and very interesting. I mean, pretty much most of the comics that I've written have started as novels anyway. So I'm one of those failed novelist writers that for 10 years has been toiling away, and then trying to struggle, and then I found comics and thought, what am I doing? I should be doing this instead. So they tend to all come from a novel base, which is nice because you've kind of got the world fleshed out already. But what the first two color issues that are in this campaign obviously deal with the main story out of the novel. So that's all fine. That all logically made sense. There's a lot of depth there I can explore, but I can just sort of slowly, introduce people to that as the comics progress. But then I thought, you know what? I'd not done a manga style for anything else that I'd written. So I thought, I really want to do something in that sort of style. This story kind of really fits it because there's lots of action. It's a bit funny, a bit quirky. So that's why I decided to go with that art style. And then I thought, why not do black and white spin-offs from earlier years? Because she's been a bounty hunter and she's worked for the Bureau, sort of bringing in bad dudes for 10 years, and nothing is written about those 10 years. So I thought I could do anything. So that was kind of a new experience because they're black and white, B, they're standalones, which I've not really done much of before. I tend to write serialized sort of things, which is exhausting because you have to just keep going and going. Whereas these are, you could just read it as a standalone, and that's a great little story. So yeah, it's really interesting. I was talking to someone the other day, and they were saying, "Oh, why don't you turn it into an animation?" And my thought was, "Yeah, give me 10 million, and I'll turn it straight into an animated series for sure." But I love the idea, and I love the idea of exploring more. Yeah, so it's been interesting so far. The only clash is with the novel and the other thing. So I have to time the novel right, otherwise if someone reads both, it'll spoil. Or I just put it out there and say, hey, don't read it if you don't want to spoil the comics. If you're not going to read the comics, because there are obviously people that just read, but they don't want to, read comics. So yeah, go for
It's
it.
also the idea is that some people come into different properties in different fashions.
Mm,
I've come into products that were, cartoons, and then turns out that they were comics first, or vice versa. Or you come into something as a novel, and then you say, hey, I want more of this. And then
mm,
you're going backwards and forwards at the same time. And I have a feeling that, at least my experience is that I personally don't care if something
mm.
ruins it. I'm like, hey, I want more of this. There's a graphic novel of this. Let me go check that out. Oh, there's a television show. Oh, let me go check that out, because sometimes that's just the way you fall into something. I fell into animation series, and I'm like, wait a second, there's a whole prequel show to this? What's going on here? And okay, that makes sense. But I do want to really dive into some of this and what you've built, because in a lot of ways you've built a world more
Mm.
so than even just a character. And I think your world building skills, because I think that you could take out Summer Rain for, a whole bunch of arcs, and you could put a different character in there, or you could even put, another bounty hunter in this world. And so obviously you sort of alluded that this big sun moon thing was up there for an entire month, and then it caused sort of hell to break open and demons transformed and a variety of other stuff happened. And it's very much post-apocalyptical. It's very much, I don't think civilization is dead, but
No.
civilization has evolved. And there's now
Mm.
like a bureau that hunts down these creatures, and these creatures are a threat. And some of them I think are good, some of them are bad. And so, what was this like? Because it is very much a very cool world, and it's a gigantic sandbox in a lot of ways. And it must be a lot of fun to write that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it's kind of a blessing and a curse, because I love complicated, detailed worlds, which means I find it very difficult just to write something without constructing that whole world, which is again a little bit exhausting, because I'm also incredibly impatient as a writer and a reader. So I need there to be action straight away. I need to get right in, and but at the same time, I like having a big world. But yeah, it's exciting because there's so as part of this campaign, I actually opened it up to a couple of writers and said, all right, as one of the tiers, if you want to write for Shadow's Daughter and co-write a spin-off with me, get on board and you can do it. And I just sort of put it out there as a bit of an experiment. I don't know if anyone's interested. They were snapped up pretty quickly, so people were interested. For me, that's amazing, because I don't have to think of the new idea, because I'm there's 6 issues here. There's also another 3 that are already in the process of being completed, and then more in the works after that. So that's exhausting, coming up with that much stuff. Whereas the crew that I'm going to be working with on these next 3, it's their ideas, their input, and even some of the ideas they've already suggested, I completely would not have even thought of. It's way out of what I would normally think, which is great. So that means it's then going to go further. And it's the same as working with the artists. You write something down, you have a rough image in your head of what it looks like. Every single time I send it to an artist and they come back, it's different in some way. And 99 times out of 100, it's better than what I had imagined, and it ends up, sort of improving the thing. Same with writers.
So
So yeah.
we're going to talk about you being lazy, as I like to call
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
You're doing what I'm doing, making people pay to write your story. Brilliant,
Yeah,
brilliant in so
yeah.
many ways. But all jokes aside, one of the things that world building is complicated. I am not a good world builder. I really like to write, and I like to keep my surroundings very small.
Mm,
I'm writing an entire story that takes place on a ship. That is a very
right.
small world, and it's an awesome thing, and I'm gonna have a blast doing it. But I purposely picked that because the story is complicated, but it's
Mm,
complicated because we're dealing with humans. And I am
yeah.
a bad world builder because I like what I like to watch in anime. So I'm a horrible world builder. It's just animes that the world just keeps going, and there's never an ending world. One Piece is a good example of that. And so, how do
Yeah.
you say, okay, I have this world and it's vast and it's rich, which is what Shadow's Daughter is in a lot of ways. But how do you also say, hey, there's a boundary here? Because that's where I think writers get tricky. And I'm sure you've
Mm,
read some comics where it's just like, how far can this world go? And now we're at a bounds, clearly.
yeah. Yeah. That's a constant struggle. As I said, most of what I write is just, episodes. The good thing from my stuff is, again, most of it I've written as a novel first, and a novel has an end. Although usually they're cliffhangers, that whole thing. But at least I can see, all right, I've got a story arc I can get to within there, and I know there are, these 30 things that will be revealed as they go through, which will hint at bigger things, but I don't have to explore those yet, but they're open later on if I decide I want to. Um, yeah, it is an interesting one, that's for sure. I'd like to be able to do what you're doing. I'd like to be able to just narrow down and just focus. I've tried many times,
See, I
you
can't
know.
do what you do. We should just trade.
Yeah,
No, we should just trade. I'll build your
that's it.
world. You build mine. I'll do the dialogue, and then you'll do. It'll be great. It'll
Yeah.
just be perfect. And we said, I'll build you a narrow world. you'll build me a vast world, and they'd be like, here you go, man, and we're done, and it's perfect. It's just
That's
perfect
the way.
because
That's it.
I
Yeah.
can't write in a big world, and I don't want to. Like even
Yeah.
even in like the story I'm writing, and it's in rough draft form. There's legitimately like 30 characters at the
Yeah.
most, and
Yeah.
a bunch of them are like a good 20 of them are supporting characters that have no speaking lines, and that
Yeah.
was all purposeful because the story is complicated. But I wanted a limitation because I don't want to go too far. So I don't know how you create a vast, rich world. I enjoy that. Don't get me wrong. I'm just bad at writing that. But I
Well,
digress.
so the way I get around it most of the time is I have the big world, but the actual stories I write are usually limited to a few characters, and the story is narrow-ish, but they just take place in it because it is exhausting trying to, writing something with 50 characters or legacy things over generations and everything. That stuff is just a nightmare, and trying to keep track of it. Wait until one of the books I'm writing is I'm up to book 4. Man, it gets confusing trying to remember who's done what to who and who betrayed who and where so and so is, and the spreadsheets with all of the details so you don't lose track of who's done what. That's the problem. But yeah, but I try and narrow it down just by and the other thing is first person perspective. And even with comics, like with Shadow's daughter, I try and write everything through her perspective or as much as possible to help with me kind of focusing it. Otherwise it'll just be a mess. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just can't write in, and I love just narrowing down positions. And
Mm.
again, I don't like to write universes. I know people who write
Yeah.
universes and they have 11 titles that all lead into one cosmic event and then shoot out. And that is not for me either, because that is a whole box of worms I do not want to unbox. So having said that, it's just one of those things where I just don't want to plot out that much. And I like keeping narrow positions. I don't
Mm.
mind creating a sequel to what I'm writing, but I
Mm.
don't want to create a universe out of it, because when you're creating a military complex universe, it gets all messy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of work, and don't even get me started on editing. That's just soul destroying doing that. This is why I started writing epic fantasy novels years ago, or that's what I was going to do. I still have my first draft, 160,000 words, sitting there that I've done nothing with, because the thought of going back and editing something that big and complex, nah, not going to do that. It's too
I'm
much.
a short writer. I've
Yeah.
written like 400 articles for my website. The longest article I wrote was like 3 pages. Like,
Yeah.
and what I like to write is I like to write 600 to 800 words. I don't have
Yeah.
time to read. It's legitly, and I'm trained as a short writer now, and so writing long for me like makes no sense. It makes no sense, because if I can get a point across in 4 words, why wouldn't I? But that's just how I
Yeah.
view things, and that's why I like focusing on narrow things, because it's also the idea that I also think about it from an economic standpoint, is that selling somebody 4 issues is going to be a
Mm.
hell of a lot easier than selling them there's 50 issues in this series, or you need every series has
Yeah.
4 issues and there's 11 of them. You now need to buy 44 issues to get a whole world view. Doesn't work for
Yeah.
me so much, but I digress right there. And now that we've destroyed world building, to check that mark off, I do though want to really get into Summer Rain, because she is a fascinating character. Because obviously she is a shadowmancer, and as you
Mm.
stated, she can bend shadows and use them to her will as a weapon, defense, in other fashions. I would imagine, practical use. And then she's also a bounty hunter who sort of gets caught up in the Bureau of Pre-Nature or Nurtural Investigations. And she's trying to make money, but some shit goes wary, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And so, what
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
this like really building her out? Because she's a complicated individual.
Yeah, so I love characters that are unexpected. So either they're old but incredibly active, or they're You know, they're the opposite of what convention would say that they are. And I love the thought of a relatively young, fairly petite, small character having this ability, which is kind of world destroying. There's a bit of it's hinted in the comics. I can't remember if I explicitly say it, but there's this reference to in common culture within this world. The only other Shadowmancer that they really know of is a guy who was a serial killer, you know, 15 years earlier. So already in the culture of this world, there is this fear of this ability, because it's literally, she's the only other one that they know of. So when she does her thing, it's, you know, so I like the idea of her being unexpectedly powerful, but also incredibly cavalier about the whole thing. And honestly, I just want to pay my rent, and I want a new bike, and, you know, just give me the money. But also, I don't want to, I'll work with the Bureau. I'm not going to work for the Bureau. I want to do it on my own terms. It's that kind of resistance to being part of the whole bureaucracy and all that sort of stuff.
Because she's very much a maverick,
Yeah.
where she doesn't want to oppose, I guess, a institution in this world
Mm.
and a
Mm.
government, where she wants to work with them, but she wants to do it her way, and she understands that's the concept. But it's also saying, look, you know, I just want to do my job, and then once I bring you this bounty or this person you want me, we're done. You give me my
Yeah.
money, I give you the person, we all walk our separate ways, and you know where to find me. But I love her because it's like, she's like, I'm a bro, yo. That's like what she
Yeah.
is, and like, you know,
Yeah.
it's great, and it's just nice to see that type of character that's just so candid about everything. Like, this is just a job. I'm enjoying my
Yeah.
job, and I have a unique skill. But because I feel like in comics, and correct me if I'm wrong, and you know, you almost have to like put everybody in a box, and it's nice when you get to
Mm.
put characters outside of the box, and they're like, this is what I am, this is what I do, and this is how we're doing it.
Yeah, yeah, so I've worked with a couple of people, and there's one in particular that I worked with that I think I drew some of the Summer Rain character out of this person I worked with, and she was funny and amazing, but also completely not, you know, short, blonde, petite. But the things that she would say and her attitude, and it just was completely contrary to what you would think. There's a part right at the start of issue 1, and it's this little scene where Summer is really upset with her roommate for washing her jeans, because in her words, well, you just washed all the comfy out of them, and that's all. So she's got, you know, that sort of thing where, you know, she well, why would you wash jeans? Jeans don't need to be washed. They're not like other clothing. You just, so what if they got a bit of blood on them and a bit of whatever, you know, all that sort of stuff. So it's such a mundane thing, but it shows perfectly the sort of person that she is. That's like, these are my jeans. I always wear these jeans when I'm, you know, kicking ass. So I need these jeans. Don't touch them. Leave them. And that comes directly out of a real life discussion I had with this
But
friend.
isn't that important though? Because isn't that real? See, that this is my problem with comics at this point, is that you either have to buy two camps in comics, and feel free to disagree with me on this.
Mm.
So I don't know if you know who Tom Hutchinson is. Big Dog Inc.
Not so much. Yeah.
So he has a comic book character called Critter. If you suspend belief that it's a superhero book, it's like old school X-Men superheroes, you know, like the X-Men cartoon from the 90s, and it's an awesome book. And if you
Cool.
come into it saying, hey, I'm suspending belief that I know this can't really happen, that somebody can do 15 backflips, it's great. Everything makes sense.
Mm.
Or you have to go in saying, hey, I want something to be actually relatable and real, such as what you did with Summer Rain, where it's this idea that she's like, these are my jeans. This is what I do.
Mm.
Do they
Mm.
smell? Maybe. I don't know. But they're comfortable, and this is how I function. And I know people like that. I may
Mm.
be like that. There's certain things where, like, I have my bed pillow, right? My bed pillow is beat up, but it's the way I want it. Like, all the fluff is beat right, and all like the cotton,
Yeah.
and it's great. You know, my blanket is a certain way, and it's comfortable. And if you
Yeah.
fuck with that and watch it, it becomes uncomfortable. And I don't really care anything else because I'm comfortable. And so,
Yeah.
what is that like? Because it's those two things, and I feel like people try to say, I want it to not. People are missing that mark in both sides
Mm.
of the camp. I feel, and it's a real problem, and it's a real turnoff in both, mainstream and in indie, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I've always been attracted to. So I don't come from a big comic background, which is why you mentioned a writer or an artist to me. Most of them I'm still learning, so I just don't know. I'm so young in this industry, and I wasn't big in it when I was younger. So I've missed kind of that whole thing. But the stories that I've loved usually have come from film or novels and that sort of stuff. I love, yes, complicated characters, but also I love the idea of some of these silly, mundane things that you see this heroic character doing that make them relatable, and you think so. So, for instance, one of my other comics, which hasn't been released yet, it's a kind of detective story that gets very weird, very quick, and supernatural and all that sort of stuff. But the main character, the detective, his big thing is such a small thing. He's lactose intolerant, and right throughout the story his regular thing is he'll sit down staring at a chocolate milkshake, just staring at the thing, taunting himself, and knowing what's going to happen if he. It's such a silly, dumb thing, but it's quirky and it humanizes him, and it's the sort of humans are like that. We're not, even when we're heroic, we're also quite dumb and weird, and we do silly little things. So I like stories that have those kind of quirks in them, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, no, I do a bunch of dumb stuff. There's an old saying that people are very good at their jobs from 9 to 5. They get
Mm.
home at 6 o'clock, dinner's on the table, and they flip the switch called stupid. And then somebody's like, you manage money for other people, yet you're in debt. Why? You don't do anything ridiculous. And what did you do from 6:01 to 8:59 in those hours that did you do this? Like, and it's a funny statement, but it's very true, and it's that quirkiness that I think is really wonderful. And I love characters that are just real. And then another thing
Mm,
that I really like about Summer is that she's a strong woman. And I don't know
mm,
how much you know about me and who I had on last night, but I had Pat Chan on. He's a Zenescope writer. I'm a huge Zenescope fan. If you go on my Instagram, there's all these Zenescope pictures of covers that I collect, and they have very strong female characters. And
mm.
it's a very cool thing, I feel, because I love bad girl art. I have a bunch
Yeah.
of friends who do bad girl comics. I don't know how many enemies in comics you have, and if I mention, certain people, I'm going to apologize. But one of the people I like who does a really good bad girl book is Larry Higgins, who does Niobe, and it's very much this. Summer Rain's a bad girl comic in a lot of ways, and she's a fucking
Mm,
ass kicker. And so, what is
mm.
that like for you to create? Because it's nice to see that, but she's not. It's not like overly politicized. She's just here to kick ass, bring in some bounties, and then portray what a strong woman looks like.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've loved it, the sort of jobs that I've had, and all of that sort of thing. I haven't really worked in a male dominated, area. I've tended to work in areas that are more, female dominated. So I'm used to seeing strong female leads all around. But also, again, I like the idea of, because the historically the key difference between men and women has always been the physical difference, that men are typically larger, they have a larger muscle mass and all that sort of stuff, and that tends to be, or has tended to be, a defining difference between the sexes. So again, I like the idea of someone who, on the surface, if you take away the gift that she's got, is just a young, woman with nothing, special. But I love just giving her the attitude that, again, I've seen with friends that I've had and still have. I don't know. There's something more appealing than that, and also I don't mind. I don't mind someone being in peril and like a princess that needs to be rescued and all those sorts of things. But I love the idea of twisting that on its head, where instead of a princess, it's an old dude who's a father figure, or it's a, something, or a dog, or something else. Just part of it comes out of just being a writer, that I want to do something different. I don't mind it being similar, but just a twist, just something a little bit more. We haven't necessarily seen it before, or it's a bit different, a bit more relatable, and it's just fun. All of my key characters and protagonists, the thing I love most about them is if they've got a smart mouth. They've just that's her best weapon, is just being a smart ass, and that is so much fun to write. It's also things that I wish I could say that I just can never say. So it's cathartic being able to put those words in her mouth. Yeah, it's just great fun. Great fun.
Yeah, no, and I like smart ass characters. I like characters who don't give a fuck what's about to happen, and I thoroughly enjoy when characters go down that path, and when they could say things that I can't say, and it's great, and so I'm a fan of that, and what I've read, and then obviously just to dive into the story, because there's the main story, and you're releasing the first 2 issues, and she's kind of hunted down, where she's gone on a bunch of bounty hunting missions, and I'm summarizing it really quickly. And then she gets contacted by somebody and who says, I'm offering you a job that you can't refuse. And
Yeah,
whether that's dirt on her or money or an opportunity or whatever it is, she gets involved and she thinks it's an easier job, and it becomes a much more complicated job where there's a larger conspiracy developing with a
yeah,
variety of people and vampires, and the person she's trying to hunt down might be what is known as a purebred and may or may not have a connection directly to her, and things get kind of wonky, and
yeah,
things start really the job that was supposed to be easy becomes a lot more, and I can't speak, becomes a lot more complicated. And so, what was
yeah.
that like, really building that out and then developing? Because this is a real entry point into what is sort of going on with this main story.
Yeah, yeah. So the rule that I tend to go with is you set up a character as being incredibly powerful, almost overpowered, and then you systematically take that power away from them, either by introducing characters that are more powerful or conspiracies where they can't, they're just as trapped as anyone else, even though they've got all this amazing power. And that's essentially what happens. She is looking forward to the Demon Moon. So Demon Moon pops up. She knows it's going to be up there for a couple of days, which means now's my chance. I can go and grab rogue vampires, bring them in, make some quick cash, and that'll help me pay rent. I might even get a new bike out of it if I can get enough money, all this sort of stuff. That's what she's thinking. She goes out on the town ready to kick heads, and then runs into Trent, who's basically her bureau handler. And he says, well, no, sorry, you're not doing that tonight. I've got a specific job for you, and you don't have a choice. You have to do it. So in other words, if you want to keep working for us, if you want to get money, you need to do this job. You don't have a choice. It goes right to the top. And then he basically says, you got to hunt this guy down. All we have is a blurry picture of a tattoo. And she says, okay, well, what has he done? Oh, he hasn't done anything yet. Okay, so you want me to hunt down a guy. All you have is a tattoo, no description, and he hasn't done anything yet. Is that, yes, that's it. Go find him. And so off she goes, and that's where the whole thing starts, spiraling. So yeah, steadily it gets worse and worse and worse. And there's a big twist, which we haven't gotten to yet in the series, but in the next series, which really kind of knocks her for six. So basically, it's how bad can I make her life, and how does she cope with that, and then how does she get out of it when all the power is gone, which is great fun. Not fun for her, and I'm sorry, Summer, to put you through that, but you're strong enough. You'll take it. You'll be good.
And so I'm not going to push too hard on this because obviously there's more to come and things are sort of moving on with this series. But one of the cool things about this and your Kickstarter is that there are 4 other comics. And so
Mm.
there's Rogue Bloodmancer, the Ether Heart, the Lunar Eye, and then there's also What Lies Beneath. And I think I did them in order, but I don't think you have to read them in any particular order. They're all sort of what I like to call, and if I offend you, I apologize. I view this as sort of like a side quest in a video game, these stories.
Mm.
And there's sort of, one shot stories that are not essential, where if you missed one of them, it's not going to change the overall story. But these things only enhance and give
Mm.
further I guess, information and intellect and give readers, if they love this series, more of her and what made Summer into what she is and the bounty hunter. And it's just another quest for her in a lot of ways. And so, what was this like building these out? Because they are sort of one shots, and
Mm.
I think they're canon, for lack of a better word, but they're not pure canon where if you miss one, it's not going to ruin the story. It's not like missing an episode of, a 12 of Naruto, like that straight up, or of a 12 episode series or something like that, where, yeah, I think I got the point across.
Yeah, no, spot on. It's kind of like a crime drama on TV. So you can watch one of those at any stage, and you might miss some of the larger detail, but the actual episode itself kind of stands alone. That's the same with these one-offs. So yeah, they stand alone. They make sense within their narrative. So you could come to them with no knowledge of the series at all, and it would just be a great read on its own. But like you say, they add a little bit more detail and background.
So what inspired these? Because it's very interesting. Because when we talk about the world building, this is
Mm,
just further use of that world that you created, and it's
mm,
very cool because you have the main story which is continuing, and then you have these side stories that are taking place, but it's the same world, and
mm,
it's very cool because I think it's a great application. I look at a lot of comic writers, and some of my friends are early on in the world they built. But I've said, hey, you can do a story 2,000 years in the past or 2,000 years in the
mm,
future. And it's very, very cool when you get to do that. And obviously, as I was stating, I'm not a good world builder. But if I was, I would definitely be building worlds of going forwards and backwards and then, yeah, enhance the world and push it up. My friend Ben, he has a world that he has legitly gone back to like the 0 year, and then he's
mm.
gotten in by 500 years in his prequel of how we got to the current story. But it's all the same world, and it's like a progressing world. And so, what is that like for you, and where did all this idea come from? Because I think it's a brilliant, brilliant move.
Yeah, well, it came from two places. One, and two fairly practical considerations as well. So one, there's all this stuff that hasn't been explored in her past. I wanted to do more stories, but the main story is kind of limited by what I've already written. So I didn't want to interfere with that. But I thought, well, there's at least 10 years before that aren't even explored. So I can just go nuts for those 10 years. And I wanted to do that first because the next step is going to be, once the main story is told, which is another couple of issues away, all right, now we can get to go ahead because now there's nothing in the future. I haven't even looked at other characters yet. There are other characters that I could explore. Minky is one of the cooler characters where there's not much written about his backstory. I'd
Sorry,
love to
I feel
do
good for
something.
moonshine. Do you mind?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he's so he's a kind of Russian-esque kind of character. He's a tinkerer.
No,
Summer
seriously,
doesn't realize it.
could you hold the thought? I'm gonna go grab my moonshine. Do you mind?
Yeah, go for it. Well, sorry, what was that? What the quote?
I'm gonna go. Excuse me. Just hold your thought. I'm gonna go grab my moonshine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Because Hebrews
Yeah, he's
moonshine.
big on the is it called Somagon? I think it's called the Russian moonshine. Yeah, he's big on
You
that.
can continue, please. It's a bad joke.
Sorry, I missed it. Um yeah, but so that was the first thing. And then the second thing was I want to do black and white because I've never done black and white comics. Manga's a great way to do it. I'll do that. And also it's so much cheaper. So I can do 4 times the comics for the same price of just doing one in color. So I thought, man, I can tell so much more stuff and give so much more value to people.
It's
Yeah.
also faster in a lot of ways because you don't have to
Oh,
format
yeah.
a book. You don't have to get a colorist. You don't have to, it's just straight up black and white. And then maybe you do a little gray tone on it and you have
Mm,
your artist do a little bit of gray tone and maybe, some of that. But even still, it's faster. And it's not so much, I think, the cost of printing the book as it is just even hiring a colorist. And I think that's what people don't understand about black and white,
mm,
because I've had people who say black and white and color are the exact same price. The difference is that I don't have to pay a flatter, I don't have to pay a
mm,
colorist, and I don't
mm,
have to wait time. Time is money. And that's the
mm,
other thing too, is that, my time is very valuable. And
mm,
so when I used to do pre-recorded, I used to hire an editor and it saved me 6 hours per episode, which means that I wasn't getting out 40 episodes a year. I was getting out 50. And
Mm,
that's a big increase. You have a 20% increase in your production
mm,
for $500. It's a no-brainer for me. So
mm,
obviously, that's something that I think people don't understand. But also, I think black and white does look cool to some degree as well. And
mm.
I like black and white comics, depending on the book.
Yeah, and it's also, I kind of liked it as well because these are earlier in her history. It's kind of like that cinematic thing where memories are in black and sorry, memories are in black and white of the past, and then the present is in color. I kind of like the way that whole thing works. So it's a bit of a subtle thing that, like, yeah, I'm reading like an older story from Summer's, life, and in that, so the future episodes might be something different, or but also, yeah, I mean, it's a quarter of the cost and a quarter of the time, which meant I actually had, so this campaign was supposed to be launched last year, but because of the paper shortage and everything else going on, I had to delay. But that delay meant I could get an extra 2 issues out. So instead of 4, it's now 6. Even that process, there's another 3 that are already done. I'm just finishing them up, that aren't part of this campaign, but they're going to follow, because I fell in love with the process, met a couple of great artists, and thought, man, it's so quick to get this stuff done. It's just, because I'm used to color, and color, like you said, slow process, very expensive, very slow. It's great, but man, it takes forever.
And look, I like color, right? So
Mm,
I'm a big color guy and I love color. I love vibrant colors. And, color is very important for a story sometimes. And I'm going to be purposely doing when I do a comic, and I'm a long ways off. I'm at least 8 months out. Just
mm,
financially, it's just not on the cards right now. And I'm building
mm,
up a stockpile of cash before I go down that venture. But the idea is that I want a color book. And I
mm.
don't mind waiting even a little bit longer for what I want to do, because I think it'll be worth it. And I also want to be like, hey, mom, I have a comic book and it's in color,
Yeah,
and so
that's
she'll put it on the fridge and it'll be great.
yeah. It's a yeah. Color is, there you go. I just happen to have that handy. Yeah, you're exactly right. I love it too. I love color, and I've never thought I would do black and white, but then now that I've started, I kind of went a bit overboard. Kind
Also,
of got addicted to it.
I have an iPad, and I got an iPad last year for Christmas, and I have Comixology, and
Right.
with like a retina screen. And if a book is colored a certain way, I'm just going to say
Mm,
this, and I'm very, very nice about it. People say, oh, a print book always looks better. I disagree. If a book is
mm,
colored a certain way, it pops off on an iPad with a retina screen. It
yeah.
pops off. And there's some books on Comixology that I'm like, holy shit. Like,
Mm,
this book is amazingly colored. So I'm just saying that there is that going on. But
mm,
yeah, even to talk about just doing these 4 and having them with the other 2, I mean, it is very much an interesting Kickstarter because there's a lot of content in
mm,
this Kickstarter now. And so if somebody's looking for a particular type of book, or they're saying, hey, I want to try this, whether they want to try it digitally or physically or a combination of the both, I think that there's like a whole digital and physical package. And
yeah.
so what is that like to be able to deliver a huge amount of content to people? Because this is one of my issues with Kickstarter, is that I buy regular comics monthly, because if I'm buying a series, I know every single month I'm going to get that book, and I know I'm
Mm,
4 weeks away from the
yeah.
next issue once I get it. And with Kickstarter, I understand that everybody's indie, and I understand it takes a little bit longer. But when you're delayed by 3 months, what people don't understand is that I'm waiting for this book to read. And so if you
Mm,
give me 6 issues, I'm going to binge it, and I want a
yeah.
lot of content. And so, what is that like? That even to get 4 issues is a lot, and then
Yeah.
to do another 2 and also keep it relatively affordable. So, what is that like? Because we are in a binge society.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so pleased with this campaign, and it's taken me a while to get here, and I made a lot of mistakes and all those sort of things. But this is, I think, my 4th campaign, and the earlier campaigns I just didn't have enough to offer. So all of these books are over 40 pages as well, so they're not small issues. So it's a lot, and that's partly because I don't like the feeling. I love supporting indies and supporting Kickstarter campaigns and that sort of stuff, and do it all the time. But then it's really disappointing when you get it and it's like a couple of pages and you're done and you think that was great, but now I have to wait like a year for the next one. And, so I like being able to, the idea of being able to give people almost like a little library that they can get right into straight away, because that's what I want. If I back a project and it's a nice thick book or a couple of books, I'm so much happier with that than when it's a really small thing. So yeah, that was part of the reason why I went black and white with the back issue, or not back issues, with the side issues as well, to bulk out the story and give people more value, because that's what I would want if I was backing something. And it's a great feeling. It really is to have something. So now I'm thinking every Kickstarter I run now, this is kind of the minimum stand. I've got to make sure there's enough there to justify it. Yeah.
And even to go further into that, because one of the things is that, so I view Kickstarter as a credibility test in a lot
Mm,
of ways, where I feel that I have a lot more credibility now. When I walk
mm,
into a room, because I funded obviously,
mm,
and I'm not saying I did gangbusters, but I funded 114% over my goal, which is pretty good considering it was my first one. It's a podcast, it's a weird month, and I'm
mm,
happy. That's my starting point. But I feel
mm,
that now I walk into a room, I have credibility because I ran something successful. I'm now fulfilling and I'm building trust, and
mm,
more so than anything else. And I mean, I've been doing my live stuff. We're on season 3 for a reason, but it's now I feel I have more credibility. And what is that like for you? Because Kickstarter does give credibility, and then more importantly, though, you're doing 6 issues, and now it's not like you're a newbie and you're coming out swinging, and you're actually delivering. And I think you're fully funded at this point, or you're pretty close to it. And
mm,
so that also further enhances trust, where it's kind of like you're now stepping into the big leagues a little bit, where you're saying, hey, I can deliver this amount of content. I got 6 issues coming out on my 4th or 5th campaign. And this is going to be the standard of having 4 to 6 issues every single time. So that when you
mm,
back me, you're getting a boatload of content. And then even going further, you're going to most likely at least offer some of this content in the next campaign. So there's going to be a potential where maybe not the next one, but the 7th, 8th, ninth one, there might be a package where you get all 20 issues. And now
mm.
there's a really big library. Whether you do that physical or digital or a combination of the both, I don't know. But what is that like for you? Because you're now entering a real credibility, trust, and delivery mode type of position, whether you want
Yeah, and
to or not.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, and I think so having done 3 or 4 successful campaigns in the past, and they were all smaller than this one in terms of the amount funded and everything. They were all funded, and that taught me a lot. But it also meant I've been able to build up credibility, because obviously what people want to know is, am I going to get the thing that you said I'm going to get, and is it going to live up to what you've said? So if you can deliver that and deliver it quickly and communicate well, and if there's a postage issue or something, you get on it really quickly and resolve it and all that sort of stuff. That's the trust that you build. So yeah, so a few campaigns in, I'm at that point now. I've got so I've had for a while now a US printer and an Australian printer, because the cost of doing this from Australia for everything is prohibitive. So I realized pretty quickly I need a printer on both continents, otherwise it's just not going to happen. So that keeps the postage down, which again makes people feel more confident that, hey, it's not being posted from the other side of the world. It's, coming from here. So all of those things, yeah, really, really add up. And I don't know, I've always feel that in anything that I do. I obviously do quite a bit of music stuff as well. It's the same thing that I'm very conscious of. I want customers, fans, backers to have confidence there. So when I launched this campaign, it was actually quite a small amount. So it was a lot less than what I would need to cover costs. And the reason why I did that was because I wanted people to know the books are finished. They're done. Whether I get enough money or not, they're out and they're going to be out in the world. So feel confident that they're done. You're not going to 6 months down the track get an email from me saying the artist is gone, I can't get it done. They're all done. So that was that. So we actually funded in 30 minutes. Because it was a lower amount, and also I had a fair bit of support to get in there. That I wanted to do that as well to again add to the confidence that you can trust that this thing is here. And particularly, occasionally indie bookstores will buy, a package and all that sort of stuff. I want them, because I mean, this is the bottom line for them. So I need them to feel absolutely confident they're going to get what they pay for.
I know
Yeah.
exactly that, because every once in a while I'm allowed to buy from somebody a retail package, and I'm an eBay store. So I know the exact number I need, and there's certain people's campaigns that I won't buy their retail package because their retail package is going to be very hard for me to make money on. And
Yeah.
a $70 retail package, and I'm like, look, there's maybe $30 in profit in the entire thing before eBay takes their 13%. So there's even less for me to
Yeah.
hold on to materials for maybe 18 months. And so it's very complicated, because an eBay store, an eBay retail store, is not the same as a comic shop. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a very different entity. And I was trying to explain, saying, look, you got to do better on your prices for me, because I'm an eBay position and I don't want every single cover you have in your retail package. I want two of them, and I'm willing to pay more money for the two covers I want, because I'm going to make more money in that realm.
Yeah.
It's the deal didn't work out, but that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand, is that a retail position isn't anymore the comic shop. It's an eBay store like me.
And you got to be, if you're running a Kickstarter campaign, I think you've got to be flexible, and you've got, so in my case, I've got options there, but most of the time I'll wait for someone to contact me. And if they contact me and say exactly like you said, can we do something? Absolutely, yes. The bottom line is, for where I'm at in what I'm doing, I don't mind just breaking even, or even a loss in some occasions, to get
I'm not
this
even
thing out there.
talking about
Yeah.
even breaking even or screwing the Kickstarter. I'll give an
Mm,
example. So certain covers I know work well with Xenoscope covers. So I
right.
have a clientele that's interested in certain artists. So if you offer
Right.
me a retail package, I might, and you have 4 covers and you're giving me 2 of each cover, I might want to contact you and say, hey, can I
Mm,
do, instead of that, can I do 4 and 4 of this, because I know my clientele?
yeah.
That's where I think people don't understand, is that I don't
Mm,
really, the price isn't the problem. It's, I need certain things, because if you are a fan of Eric Basaluda, or you're a J. Scott Campbell fan, there are people who like certain books. And I know people who, all they do on eBay is sell J. Scott Campbell's. So if somebody is a
mm,
J. Scott Campbell student, or it's a J. Scott Campbell-esque cover, and this is massively informative, all of a sudden I might want that cover only, because
mm.
I know it's going to sell. First thing, if
Yeah.
it's a
That makes
cover by
sense.
somebody who's not that art style, that cover will eventually sell, but it's not going to sell as fast. And I'm a business, and
Yeah.
so that's where it gets interesting. And it's complicated, because if everybody wants that cover and there's only 100 of them, I understand on
Yeah.
both sides. But at the same time, if you're printing 250 copies of that book, and I want 4 and 4 and I'm foregoing certain covers, and I reach out to you and say, hey, look, I just want a retail package of X, and I'm willing to pay an extra $40,
Mm,
and technically I should reach out to these people with, because I'm like, look, this is what I want, because I know those books are going to sell, and I'm willing to pay more money for X, but it doesn't
mm.
make sense for me to carry the other 4 books you're putting into that retail package. It makes no economic sense for me. And so it's tricky, and that's what I think people don't understand, is a retail store is now not anymore the same as it once was. And if you're a good
Mm,
comic shop and you know your customers, you should know
mm,
exactly your customers and what they want. And that's a
yeah.
big deal. And if I run a comic shop, I'm going to know exactly what my customers want and when they want it and what covers they want, because that's how you make real money.
Yeah, and it's different to, some indie backers, they're willing to gamble on, what, I like it, it's great, whatever. If you run a shop, you're not gambling. You know what I mean? You need to know what's going to sell, and you need to buy what's going to sell, not have loose stock flying around and everything.
There
Yeah.
is a difference between being an investor in comics, and I invest
Mm,
in comics and speculating in comics, versus being a shop.
yeah.
So I don't mind holding on to a book, and if the book costs me $10, I'm looking to get 20, 25 out of it. And if
Mm.
it takes 6 months to sell, I don't mind holding on to merchandise in that realm. So it's a little bit speculation, but I also got in cheap. And I think that's something that people don't realize is that if you're a comic shop or you're like me who's saying, I want to invest in this, you got to really understand why I'm betting on X.
Yeah.
And so that's something that that is a lacking education in Kickstarter, where I
Mm.
don't think, and people, and I'm gonna get flack for it, but they say I'm hiring a variant artist because people like this person and they have a loyal fan following. That's true, but they also have a loyal fan following because people are trying to build collections and invest in comics, and then at some point
Mm.
they're hoping that what they bought 10 years later is worth for $20 is worth 200 or worth 300
Mm.
or worth 400, and then maybe somebody comes along and says, "Hey, I'm willing to buy it off you for 350," and then all of a
Mm.
sudden that's your kid's college fund after
Yeah, yeah.
your wife yells at you saying, "Honey, we have no money for the baby. We need the college fund. We have all of this, and it's taking up my pottery space."
Yeah.
And you don't think that doesn't happen? Oh, it happens. If you
Oh,
go
of
on
course
Facebook,
it does.
you see the post, and I promise you, you could find them up there. They're still up there on a bunch of people, and I see one at least once a week where I'm selling my comic collection. My wife did not force me to sell it.
Yeah.
Did not
Yep.
force is the key word there.
Yep. It's very, yep.
But this is how the show goes now. Is that there's a middle tangent for like 15 minutes talking about nothing that has to do with your book. That will get you and me both canceled. So clearly, well, this is the last interview you're doing.
Yeah.
This show is going down into the gutter. It's clear. I understood that from the start of season 3. But getting back into all of this, because obviously the book is done and there's a lot of stuff going on, and all 6 of them are done because I think
Mm.
they were previously published under Marcosia.
So no. So this is kind of yet to be announced, but I kind of let it slip anyway. So they've been picked up by Mycosia, but I haven't released the print versions of them. So the run that I'm doing now in Kickstarter is through my own label, Super Series Comics, because who's got time to think of a decent name for a publisher? So they're going to be a bit more unique because they'll have extra stuff in there from the Kickstarters, which won't be in the Marcosia versions. But the good thing is there's longevity there. So once this campaign is finished, these will be available worldwide. The others that I'm already building will be available worldwide. The new ones that we're going to build. So it means that it's even outside of Kickstarter, they're going to exist. And I haven't said this to anyone, so you're getting an exclusive. And I have no idea if this is even going to work or even if it's a thing. There's a diary that I'm working on, so like a visual diary kind of thing of Shadow's daughter. I may even look at a coloring book. I don't even know if there's I know that those low content books are big now, but I don't know. But
I've seen color books becoming big. I've also seen just like secret file books becoming big, and things like that
cool.
are really cool. So
Mm.
I think a secret file book would be way cooler of like her and like almost like a journal and like her monster log. That'd be dope.
See, now I've got to write stuff down. You're gonna have to charge me for that idea.
It's all right. It's all right. You already paid $20, so but like a monster log would be super cool, and like have it look like a leather, like worn leather, and like worn on it. Oh, it'd be brilliant. As
that
like
would
a
be
cover.
cool.
Oh, it'd be dope. It'd be dope. And even you could even top it. I don't know how you would do it, but the Lady Death stuff. There are Lady Death covers from back in the day that are like leather, and they're like 10,000 copies of them, and
Wow.
you could find them in like the dollar bin. That's how I know. But I found it in a dollar bin at a comic shop, and I was like, "This is awesome." I didn't know what Lady Death was. I'm like, "This is a cool book, awesome." So if you could probably even do an upcharge if you could find somebody who could do like a leather cover and
Yeah,
pound it into it and like do it for like $40. And if you have certain fans, and then you can even do it like limited to like 30 or 40 so that it's super limited. And oh, it'd be dope.
that sounds like a good idea for the next campaign. That's a great idea.
And
Yeah,
then
I love it.
the,
And
but
it's also you've got to, you just try stuff. You know, I'm just fumbling around with most of this stuff and trying to get it in front of as many people as possible. So I'll give it a go. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I'll give it a go. Try and get the stuff out there,
Oh,
you
I
know?
mean, look at my Kickstarter. I just went out and I did a metal card. I had no idea what I was doing, and but I sold like 4 of them. My
Mm,
partner, who's collabed with me on that, is getting half of them. I'm getting the other half that we didn't sell. We're splitting the money raised from the metal card, and then he's getting a bunch of product. I'm getting a bunch of product, and guess what? I got like 50 metal cards from my eBay store now,
yeah,
and
yeah,
all paid through my Kickstarter, and I'm going to be selling them at 15 bucks a pop. I
yeah.
mean, and it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and you know, it's going to be fun. I'm going to be sending out a bunch of people I know, and it's going to be cool. I'm going to be like running like raffles and stuff, but to drive social media. But I'm willing to try it, and I'm probably going to be producing more metal cards. I might even produce an additional metal card for my next Kickstarter that I'm launching on April 1st.
Nice. Oh, wow. That's not that long ago. Well, there you go.
It's
Oh,
called
this is the difference between the one that you've run and the one that I'm running. I forget you don't have to print a whole bunch of comics at the end of yours. So that's why I'm thinking. But man, isn't it? What about paper? Have you got enough paper to get it all done? Yeah. Sorry, that's a comic book thing. I forgot.
I have to print postcards and I have to print metal cards.
Right.
Those are my only 2 physical things, but I am producing a comic book in April. But it's a different
Oh.
book than what people think, and I think people are going to thoroughly enjoy it. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a fun one,
Cool.
and I might have no friends at the end of it, but I'm not going to say any more about that. Um, but I might have no friends at the end of this. But I think people are going to be either really really enjoying what I'm going to do, or they're going to hate me. And but they're not going to hate me because they're going to hate me because they didn't think of it first.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, they're going to hate me, and it's going to be great. And it's a really good idea, and it's not that complicated of an idea. And let's just say, if you're a Naruto fan, you're going to start calling me Shikumaru at the end of that discussion. So maybe you should interview me for that one.
Yeah. All right. We'll do it. We'll do it.
I mean, there's gonna be no digital though, because it's gonna make no sense on a digital level. Actually, it's gonna be even funnier on a digital level. I'll probably charge somebody like $90 for shipping on digital.
That would be a first. That's fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
no, that's a meta idea for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
free shipping worldwide to everybody, but you charge $90 for sending an email. Oh,
That would be
clearly this
amazing.
show's going downhill. This show's going down. Um, but I do want to talk actually about rewards, because
Mm,
obviously you got major publishing coming in and actual worldwide distribution coming in with Marcosia, which is super cool. And I'm not going to push too hard on that, but it was up on your website, so I thought it was fair game.
yeah, yeah. It is. I forgot that I put it on the website. I was going to do like a big reveal, and I stupidly forgot. Dude, you've got it on your website. What do you? Anyway, you know.
But I have pictures because I like pictures, and you got a bunch of rewards. So
Mm,
obviously these are the 6 issues.
yeah.
And then there's some digital stuff where you can just get issues 1 and 2. You get the whole package. And there's a bunch of things. Then this is the 2nd issue, or I think this is number 2. This might be the variant. I'm not too
That's
sure.
one of the variants. Yeah, yeah. So that's unlocked now, so people can get that one. That's the second issue one there. Yeah,
And then it's a little bit out of order. That's the first one, I think, right?
that's the first one. Yeah, yeah.
And as you can see, it's an anime vibe. And then this is another variant. I don't know if this
Ooh.
one's unlocked yet.
This just got unlocked yesterday, the day before. So yeah, that's unlocked now.
And then obviously this is a print, I think, for the first
So
50.
that's a print. Yeah. So I actually found those from a previous campaign and forgot that I had them. So I've added them in. So there's 50. The first 50 print backers get the option of getting that for issue 1.
And so that's something that's very cool as well. And then these are this is Ether Heart, this
Yeah.
is Rogue Bloodmancer, this is Shadow's Daughter, What Lies Beneath, and then this is the Lunar Eye. And so these are just the 4 issues. And then one of the things is that obviously with the stretch goal, how is that going to work? Where people can swap out an issue, or swap out a cover, or is it that for issue 2 they could pick this one for issue 2,
Mhm.
and then for issue 1 they could pick this one, or how does that all work? Because that's a fascinating concept to me.
Yeah, and part of this is because I just didn't know any better, so I just did it the way that's easiest for me and that makes sense. So essentially, issue 1 and 2, you can put whatever cover on it you want, and the other cover that would normally go there will go on the back. So you'll get both covers, but you pick which one you want up front,
Cool.
of those two variants. And then the standard black and whites just have the standard issues. Standard covers. But yeah, so pretty much you swap them out. Now that they're both available, you can use both of them, use one of them, whatever you want to do. It's a little bit more variation and complication when we're putting it together in the back end, but it's also just easier to work that way. So yeah, people can just choose. So I'll send out a survey at the end of the campaign and say, all right, what do you want? How do you want it all together? And then the logistics will begin. It's
So
just got to
let
be
me
done.
ask you a question, because I know people are
Mm.
going to have this question. Can people add on another issues 1 and 2 and just get basically all the covers on the front if they want to on the back end?
So this is something I've actually been thinking about the last few days because I don't have that currently, but I'm thinking of adding an extra tier that essentially just adds in the extra ones you don't have. Because the whole collecting thing
There's a
is just so
completist.
foreign to me. It's just not. I still know nothing about it, so I'm getting used to it.
There's a term called a completist, and
Oh
somebody's going to
yeah,
want that. Where they're going to be
right.
like, "Hey, I like this concept. This sounds cool. This could be a movie somewhere down the line," or I just want everything,
Yeah,
and I don't want, if it's going to cost me another $15 or another $20. What do I care? Because
yeah.
it's the idea that now I'm just getting everything on a cover, and why not? And so that's something that I think people are going to really want, and that's something that I would recommend, because I
Mm,
know people who are like that. For me as an individual, I have a limited budget on Kickstarter, so I
yeah,
am not a completionist. I pick out what I want, and then I hope for the best. And
yeah,
I'm perfectly satisfied with that, because but certain things, if I really love a project and a whole tier is like $60, I might spend $60 on something that's the whole thing. But it's just one of those things that's very cool, and I think it would do really, really well for people
mm.
just to add on and just have that saying, "Hey, look, I want all of it the right way." So it's something that's very cool. Or even backer kit or add-ons are always effective as well. And look, there
Yeah.
are people who just want extra issues. I know people who say, "Hey, look, I want extra issues," and
Mm,
I know somebody who wants this, and I've done that where there's been things on backer kit that I've added on, and I bought a book for $20, and then I've added on a 50 book and a $10 book. And people have done that with my campaign with interviews, where they've added
mm,
on interviews and added
mm.
on like guest spots and other things, because, well, that's what people want. And so it's very, very helpful. It helped get me funded. So
So I have a question for you in that you are a font of knowledge with this stuff, and I'm still learning a lot of it. Talk to me about virgin covers, which I presume are covers that don't have any text or anything on them.
well, are you a
Is there a
Madonna
demand for
fan?
them? Sorry?
Are you a Madonna fan?
I mean, not
Yeah.
not
This
nothing
is so
against
bad.
Madonna, but not really.
So, what do you want to know about Virgin? This is like a teachable moment.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, I've got you, so I might as well ask. So, do you think are people interested in that? Because so for instance, the second the creepy cover with the Telos is his name, the guy going then, who incidentally has two hearts, one that pumps ink and one that pumps blood. Yeah, that's the dude. Beautiful art. It kind of feels like I'm a bit of a vandal if I then go and stick, Shadow's daughter and all this sort of stuff on them. Do you reckon there's a demand for selling a version that just has that with nothing
Yeah,
written on it?
people like Virgin covers depending on the cover, and
Cool.
people like Virgin covers. People like trade dresses. I mean, it all depends. Where somebody's like, "Hey, I'm just gonna leave this as a Virgin." My friend Larry Higgins was like, "Hey, I'm leaving this one as a Virgin cover on one of his campaigns that's coming up in March." And one of the things that's very important is that he's making a determination that the cover itself should be left alone and should be a
Mm.
virgin cover. And it's a
Yeah.
very, very important thing where some covers deserve it and some covers don't. And so it's really it doesn't matter if there's a demand for it or not. It's saying, hey, what do I want to do with this book? You know,
Yeah.
and that's really what matters, because if somebody says, oh, it's a virgin, I'm not going to buy it. Nobody's ever said that. If
Mm.
anything, typically virgin covers tend to have a higher premium. But if you say,
Mm.
hey, I'm going to keep this at the same price and it's a virgin cover, I don't think
Mm.
anybody's going to care. So if you're talking about having a virgin cover and then a non-virgin cover of that cover, it's a little bit different. But you say, hey, I'm just going to leave that as a virgin cover and it's the same price as everything else, and you could swap
Mm.
it out and nothing changes. You're just saying, hey, I'm making an artistic choice. I mean, I think that's perfectly fine, because nobody cares if their price doesn't change. If that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. 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 If you're not charging more, yeah,
It's kind
that
of like
makes sense.
if I have a comic and I might be producing something later on with the book I was telling you about earlier, and I don't want to give the idea away so quickly. If I might have a trade dress and then I might have a virgin cover or a foil virgin cover, that might be a $40 book versus a $10 book. That's
Mm.
different. Where you might have a trade dress or you might have a traditional virgin that's the same as every other book, but then you might have a foil that's more expensive, that of the same virgin cover, because it might make sense. And so that's a different entity completely.
Yeah.
But if you just say, hey, I'm just going to keep this as a virgin, looks like this, and that's the idea, well, that's what I would do. And if it's
Yeah.
the same price as this one, I don't think anybody cares so much. And then they have a choice. That's what it's going to be,
Yeah.
because
Sweet.
nobody's going to complain about that. It would be different if you said, this is a virgin, so this is, you have to add $10 to swap it out. Then it
Yeah.
becomes a different issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
People might spend the money. You'd be surprised. So people might say, hey, I like the artwork on this and it's a virgin cover and it's more valuable.
Mm.
Or, sometimes virgins are limited, and that's what they do in comics sometimes, is that there is a lot of demand for something like that. But I think in your case, as I was stating, I know I'm repeating myself, and this is a great lesson for everybody out there. Um, you know, if you say, hey, this is a beautiful cover, and for me to throw my Shadow's daughter on there is going to just ruin this cover and take away, that makes no sense.
Mm.
But I'm not raising the price.
Mm.
So, that's kind of what it is, I think. So
Cool.
that's how I would go about it. But as I was stating, moving back to rewards here,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you get drawn in as the judge. And, I really like that face now. No, I don't know who did that idea, but also you can then also be drawn in as the auxitor, or
The or Orox. Yeah.
the aurochs. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm shooting off of my memory a little bit. You could be one of the three heads, and I don't know if somebody has bought any of the three heads yet.
Yeah. One of them's gone so far. Yeah. Yeah.
So technically speaking, and I'm curious, and I'm sure you don't mind, that somebody could buy the other two. If you
Yeah.
have, two kids and you want to put your kids in there, I no, you'd be surprised. People buy getting drawn into books,
Yeah.
or as gifts to people, and it's a very cool thing in a lot of ways. And
And
so,
this will be worldwide as well. So you're kind of being immortalized, sort of.
and then you have some other cool things as well, where you have drawn into the background. I
Mm.
think a speaking role in something. Obviously, co-write an 8-page black and white issue. And correct me if I'm wrong. You might not know this, but if you co-write something, you are technically considered a comic writer, and you get a
Yeah.
credit in this.
Yeah.
You can then go say, hey, this is my first work. And that you can technically go to a convention and say, hey, I'm a comic writer and I'm a published comic writer.
Yeah, yeah, spot on. And that was part of the idea for someone that wants to get into it, but doesn't want to necessarily invest in their whole project themselves. But so it's basically, yeah, join in part of this world. There's a huge amount of scope, so there's so many things it can be about, but still within the same universe. Yeah.
And also, it's the idea that, let's say that you're brand new and you don't know anything. So
Mm.
obviously, I haven't written a comic. I'm writing mine right now, and it's a rough draft, but I've read a bunch of books on this, and I have a bunch of people's scripts that I can go off of. And I don't think that, and I'm in the industry, but let's say that you're brand new and you don't
Mm,
know anything, and you don't have the friends that I have, that you have. This is a great way how to get in. Or conversely, let's say you do have the friends, but you're like, hey, look, I just want some assistance,
mm.
because you're going to provide assistance, you're going to provide guidance, you're going to provide scripts, and you're also going to be like, hey, here's some guidance, here's how you do it. And then if it's 8 pages and all of a sudden, it's a really good idea, you know, maybe at some point, if this continues to grow, there's other opportunities, as well as, I'm sure that you're going to provide people some scripts and some material that's going to give a little bit more of an education as well. Where you're not going to just leave somebody, hey, you're off to the races. You come with this idea. Good luck. See you in 6 months.
Yeah, no, we'll be working together. There's all sorts of things that I'll be hand holding all the way through it, and we'll have lots of catch ups and that sort of stuff. There's also, as I hinted before, I've never done a 22-page comic. I've done a few 8 pages, but my natural inclination is to make them longer. So even though it says 8 pages, I'm leaning more towards they're going to end up being longer, because why would I just do 8 when I could do more, and which again is a great opportunity, because they're part of a bigger story then. Yeah, it's really cool.
And if there's something really good that comes out of something, you're like, hey man, I sort of caught the bug, and you're 14 pages in, I don't think
Yeah,
you're opposed to stopping if it's actually really good and it's like 12, 14 pages. You're like, oh man,
absolutely.
it's really good. Like, let's publish it. Let's see where it goes, because it's something that's very cool. And I'm sure somebody's going to get comps and a variety of other stuff out of this as well. So it's one of those things where, it's a cool opportunity, and it's a really cool position to learn how to do this stuff.
Yeah, and it's safe, which is really good, because you don't have a lot of safety when you start doing it on your own. If you don't know people and get advice and everything, it is a bit risky. And this way, we'll get to the end, we'll have the finished product, and you'll be on there. You'll be a writer on this amazing project. So yeah, it's cool. I'm as a writer super excited, as I was saying earlier, because it is a bit exhausting continually trying to come up with new ideas, and just getting a fresh injection of ideas from someone else from a completely different perspective is so refreshing. Because I don't have to do all the carrying. I can be a bit lazy, and I could go, dude, that idea is awesome. Let's do more on that thing that you suggested. Write words
I
and then
have
come to me,
such,
and let's.
I have
Yeah.
such a good idea. I'm just broken. I have such a good idea for a story in your world. Oh, such a good one. I'll tell you
You,
after.
you're gonna have to message. Yeah, you're gonna have to tell me after. Yeah.
Oh, it's a short one, but it's brilliant. But obviously, and then there's a bunch of other stuff. I think we dealt with the shipping, where shipping is not going to bankrupt you because you have a printer in the U.S., and
Mm,
that's helpful. So that
yeah.
definitely cuts back on shipping. I think the U.S. is a little bit stronger than or weaker than in Australia. I don't know how we calculate it. So I think it like $9 in Australia is 7 in the U.S.
Yeah.
So whatever price you see on that, is a little bit cheaper on that front. And then you got a bunch of other stuff going on, obviously, and I don't think we're gonna get much to it, but you have Whiplash, a Ross Chronic's novel, you got the Script Rebellion, you got Idle Thuggery, and then Mini that I can't speak.
It's
You
a
can
tricky
correct me
one.
on what?
Enmity. Yeah. I chose that partly because no one can say it, including me, but I can say it now. Yeah.
And then you got the Blood Below, which I didn't think has come out yet.
Not yet. No. It's a.
And so you got a lot of stuff going on. And obviously, we spent a lot of time talking actually about your project that's currently going on. And,
Mm,
but I do want to touch upon something that is slightly outside of comics, because Australia is a complicated country right now with COVID. And I
mm,
have some friends down in Australia who are wrestlers. And I've interviewed some cosplayers from Australia. And it's been a very, very interesting ride down there, where you're open, you're closed. Certain parts are open, certain parts are closed. Certain parts are say, hey, go to the liquor store. 6 hours, we're closing it again, so you better stock up.
yeah.
I mean, it's funny to some degree, but that's what it seems like. And so, what has it been like for you down with COVID? And I know certain cons have happened and things haven't happened and things have been pushed, and it's a complicated entity.
It is, yeah, and so yeah, cons wise, I haven't been to anything for 2 years, and so just a lot of online stuff. I'm fortunate though, with I live in a decent sized house, so we're not too cramped up, and most of the time this is where I am, either making music or working or doing writing comics, editing, doing all that sort of stuff. So I'm actually quite good at being at home. That's where I prefer to be most of the time. So it hasn't been too hard on me, but yeah, it's very confusing and a lot of contradictory messaging, which every country has had to struggle with that sort of stuff. By and large, we've been pretty lucky, but
I'm
hey,
very confused by Australia, and I don't live there.
yeah. We're confused too. But I tell you what, it's a similar sort of thing to what I understand happens in the States. That we have a national government, but then we also have state governments, and if they're from different parties, of course they blame each other for everything, and it's no one's accountable and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, usual deal.
It's all right. It's all right. Everybody blames Florida, but when they want to go on vacation, that's where they go. So go figure out the United States. And that is the definition of politics. Florida as the enemy, but there's beaches, there's sun, and it's warm. They're the
Yeah.
enemy, but we're going to vacation. Congress get 2 weeks off. Half of them were down in Florida. From both parties, might I add. So talk about hypocritical government. We're in Florida, but where we go for vacation, we're not going to South Dakota, and we sure are not going to Alaska. Yeah. So Florida it is, everybody. So I'm just saying that I don't live in Florida. I may or may not move there. They have zero income tax, or I will move to Texas. Because again, zero income tax, or Tennessee for that matter. It's a taxation policy. Taxes are evil, and I do not like paying taxes if I can illegally avoid them. I also do not want to go to jail, so I will pay my taxes in lieu of it.
Oh, I think we may have lost you.
I'm back.
Oh, you're back. You're back.
Yes, finally. I wouldn't make it in jail, everybody. So I'll have to pay my taxes instead. But obviously we've been speaking for an hour and a half. Hopefully I gave you a good interview for supporting my Kickstarter. I don't know if I did that, but at least I tried. But I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself. So where can people find you on social media, Twitter, Facebook, website? Where can people support the Kickstarter? Because that's very important. And even hit you up for other things, because obviously, you're a writer, and writers need to work so they can eat.
Yeah. So easiest place to go is just morganquaid.com. And then you'll find links to all social media. But yeah, by all means, hit me up on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anything like that. Search for Shadow's Daughter in Kickstarter, and you'll find it. Or just have a look at my social media. You'll see it. I'm posting far and wide and often. So yeah, you'll be able to find it there. And by all means, get in touch if there's anything you want to know. If you're interested about anything that I can help with, yeah, more than happy to chat. Yeah, and please support Shadow's Daughter. It's an awesome project. You get a lot for your money, and we put a lot into it. There's 10 artists involved and myself. If you like this sort of thing, I know that you'll love Shadow's Daughter. So do yourself a favor. There you go.
Yeah, and what I've been saying, and I'm going to keep saying, is you have to support indie comics. And the way you do that is you actually back Kickstarters. So obviously, Morgan has a Kickstarter that's going on, and it is crucial that you back that Kickstarter. Now, whether you back it for $1, $10, or $100, every little bit helps, and every little bit goes a long way, because we are not Marvel, DC, or Image, or any of those big companies where they have a lot of money, and every dollar goes into the book. whether that goes into supplies for the book, printing to the book, goes to pay back artists or goes to pay artists to do things or anything of that nature. It goes a long, long way. And it is very, very, very important that you support. And every dollar goes a massively long way, as I was saying. And it counts because it makes the book better. So that's super important. But I get it. If money's tight, I understand. One of the things that you can do instead of supporting, if money's tight and you're in that position, is to actually share it out on social media. So share it out on Facebook, share it out on Twitter, share it out on Instagram. Mention it to a friend of yours that they're into that, because that stuff goes a long way. Or sign up for an email list or an email newsletter, which you have as well, because maybe you can't support this one, but if you sign up for the email list, you'll be notified of the next one. And that's also very, very important. And it goes a long way. And obviously, if you can support it, you should be doing the sharing out of it. But if you can't, sharing out is just as valuable, because you don't know who's watching. And it's happened on this very show with certain people where somebody's been on and like, oh man, I didn't even know that Kickstarter was going on. And, I'm going to be very honest. I think that's what's going to happen, where I have a bunch of friends who are going, you ran a Kickstarter, man? Like, how did I not see this? And that happens. And, unfortunately, sometimes people just don't see things. So it's very important to share it. And the more things get shared, the more likely something is to get funded or even reach its second, third, fourth, or fifth stretch goal. So it goes a long way. And on that note, I'm going to promote myself real quick. Obviously, share this interview out. I appreciate all that. Like the Facebook page, Pop Anime Comics, like YouTube, Pop Anime Comics. Subscribe to that channel. Check me out on Twitter at Pop Anime Comics. You can check out my website, popanimecomics.com, as well as go buy my t-shirt. It's on Redbubble. It's a Gundam shirt. It's making fun of Amore Tacos and the most interesting man in the world, and making fun of Taco Bell at the same time. And I would love a retweet from Taco Bell. I think that'd be hilarious. That'd be funny. But yes, that's a great way how to support this show, because all the money from that shirt actually goes back into this show and continues to make it better. Also, you can check out the metal cards. They're going to be up on eBay May, June. Pop Anime Comics Collectibles. So if you like this metal card, and I'll show it really, really quickly here. Right here, totally shelling myself here, but that's the metal card, and it's going to be all shiny. So that's going to be up on eBay, and it's going to be about $15. Or you could privately message me, and we can work something out on that front. And I am fulfilling the Kickstarter right now, so fill out your surveys, everybody, if you're witnessing this. And if you missed the Kickstarter and you would like to participate, I'm sure we can work something out and want to support this show. There's a million ways how to do that, and I'm sure that we can figure out a way. But I will let everybody know that it is at least $20 for a guest interview. It is $15 for a live read, and it is not going to be cheaper, and it might even be more expensive because, well, I think it's only fair to the people who actually supported the Kickstarter that they get a better deal. So on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Thanks, everybody. Support indie. Have a great day, night, week, and I'll catch you around.
And that is a wrap.